Another reaction video. I like this series. I believe it's pronounced Kurzgesagt. I've seen a few. I've got to be honest, it's the first time just now I kind of took the time to go, right, how do I pronounce this name? Kurzgesagt. Kurzgesagt in a nutshell. Right, okay. New video. Well, say new. Haven't seen it. I'm going to hit play, and I'm going to react to it, and we're going to upload it, and we're going to go from there. Okay, cool. All makes sense? Perfect.
1960s, the US planned to nuke Israel with hundreds of thermonuclear bombs, and Panama, and Alaska, all in the name of progress, driven by a mad scientist to use the most destructive of weapons to build things.
I was about to say, wasn't this goal to, like, actually use it to build canals? But the argument was, like, why are we wasting time using dynamite and tractors when we can just plant a series of, like, thermonuclear bombs, like, in a line, and then just boom, 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 and carve out huge troughs of land, you know?
Excavate canals, carve out harbors, tap oil and gas. This was Project Plowshare. It kept the US busy for 2 decades.
Project Plowshare. It's such a non-threatening name. Plowshare. You know?
Burned hundreds of millions of dollars and exploded dozens of nukes for a bright future. In the most feverish years of the Cold War, when the world got terrifyingly close to blowing itself up.
Because at one point they had all these nukes, and there was a legitimate question to be asked that no one was able to answer, which is, what do we do with them all? Kurzgesagt in a nutshell.
Nukes for peace.
Nukes for peace.
Our story begins with the brilliant Hungarian physicist Edward Teller, one of the key scientists of the Manhattan Project, the colossal effort that led to the first nuclear bomb. But almost from the beginning, he dreamt of destroying the world much harder. Traditional nukes, like the Hiroshima and Nagasaki ones, release energy by splitting heavy atoms like uranium. But these are rare, expensive, and the resulting bombs are difficult to scale up. So, Teller lobbied for a different approach: unleash the nuclear fire by smashing together hydrogen atoms. That would allow for bombs thousands of times more powerful. The problem was technically hard, but in the 1950s, Teller solved it. The terrifying new thermonuclear bomb made Hiroshima and Nagasaki look like firecrackers. Nuclear...
Yeah, I think it's something where, like, the original nuclear bomb was using primarily fission, is the splitting of uranium atoms, specific types of uranium. Fusion weapons is that when the nuclear bomb detonates, the shockwave from that, I think there's like a surrounding ball of hydrogen or something. I'm half making it up at this point. The pressure wave and the heat forces that to fuse, and you get a much more intense reaction. The key difference today is obviously, like, fusion energy is way harder to get because it's sustaining that continuously is, like, ridiculously hard to do. Whereas you can sustain a fission reaction so long as you have enough uranium, like, this sort of decaying down. This is me just talking nonsense, but it kind of makes sense.
Fire strong enough to end human civilization itself. The Soviet Union followed quickly, and a new...
I mean, look at that sinister-looking fella. My God.
Madness for destruction took over the world. Teller was having the time of his life as he got to chase his nukiest dreams like a bomb so powerful that it would wipe out civilization in one single strike. A real thing the US actually started working on. We've told this story before if you want to watch it. And as the perfectly sane man he was, Teller had other great ideas, like nuking the moon to show the commies who's boss. And if H-bombs could destroy the planet, maybe they could also reshape it. The logic wasn't entirely unhinged. Humans had been using explosives for mining.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was saying before. Yeah, it's like it was trying to find civilian applications for it. So why not use nukes for space travel? Why not use nukes to, you know, to open up areas to humans to go into? Why not use nukes to, like, you know, basically colossal new ways of terraforming, you know, but on the Earth?
And engineering for centuries, and H-bombs offered the same service with much more enthusiasm at a decent cost. Why not use them to dig ditches and make holes at a planetary scale? The idea of nukes for peace was also pretty convenient. With public opinion increasingly opposed to the arms race and ever more terrified by World War III, nuclear engineering was a way to keep on testing nuclear weapons without saying you were testing nuclear weapons. So in 1950,
Clever. Yeah, we're not testing nukes for weapons reasons. We've got no intention of using this on anyone. We're just, at the moment, I'm just trying to, work on a new extension for my garden, and I want a new way of, excavating.
1957, the US launched Project Plowshare, a bold plan to use nuclear explosions for peaceful engineering. And who would be put at the helm? Exactly. Cutting through continents. In 1956, Egypt had just nationalized the Suez Canal, a vital artery for global trade and oil delivery to Europe. So, one of the first ideas of the new Build with Nukes doctrine was to blast open a new one through the Israeli desert. On the other side of the world, the Panama Canal had long been in need of an upgrade. Scientists explored extension routes and found they would need to remove 1.2 billion.
I gotta be honest, the way things are going today, it might not be a bad idea to do this sort of thing to the Strait of Hormuz. Just be like, carve one out right through the UAE. Like, we can't go through the Strait? Okay, well, let's make our own.
Billion cubic meters of earth, 500 Great Pyramids of Giza. A monumental task that would cost $6 billion if done with shovels, but only $3.1 billion with nukes. Time to blast open a panatomic canal. But even Teller understood that before nuking through continents, you should start small. So the first miracle of Project Plowshare would be a new harbor in Alaska. In just a few glorious milliseconds, 5 nukes with the combined punch of 170 Hiroshima bombs would carve out a 500 by 200 meter trench, opening the region to commerce and prosperity. The local communities weren't thrilled at the idea, but Teller insisted that the dangers of nuke engineering had been greatly exaggerated. The major concern was radioactive contamination.
Yeah, of course. The amount of radioactive waste and stuff and fallout that falls into the water system, gets into the drinking water, into the food chain. It's wild. I mean, I understand back at the time they were looking for reasons to use it, but this is insane. Literally, the Simpsons fish.
1,000 harbors were great, but nobody wanted them glowing with radioactivity for thousands of years. Luckily, Teller had a plan: nuking the land from below. In a nutshell, nuclear excavation works like this. You drill a hole a few hundred meters deep and place the bomb at the bottom. When it goes off, the blast hollows out a cavern in the rock and flash melts its walls into magma. The molten rock pools at the bottom, the ceiling collapses, and the collapse ripples upwards until it reaches the floor, where it forms a crater. The result is a massive hole on top, with the radioactive debris sealed under hundreds of thousands of tons of rock. With the theory looking flawless on paper, the time had come to actually test it.
Yeah, but how much is it going to cost to do that? How complicated would that be? And again, there's no guarantee against contamination into the groundwater, which you drink.
Plowshare debuted in 1961 in the desert of New Mexico. A nuke with the power of 3,100 tons of TNT was buried 360 meters deep in the heart of a salt deposit.
No way!
The goal was to explore a new idea to generate electricity.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't know they actually tried this.
The explosion would melt the deposit into a pond of red-hot liquid salt whose heat could be pumped up to power turbines.
Right.
A hybrid of fusion and geothermal power brought to you by H-bombs. Above ground, hundreds of officials, scientists and international guests had gathered to witness the birth.
I can only assume something went wrong, and otherwise this thing would have become, I assume, a more regular event, no?
Of a new era. Everyone held their breath as the countdown ticked. And then, with a distant thud, the ground shuddered. Deep below, the explosion hollowed a cavern the size of over 10 Olympic swimming pools. But Teller's team had missed a tiny detail. The salt contained far more water than expected, which turned into superheated steam that massively amplified the blast. The hole used to lower the bomb had been designed to collapse and seal itself after the explosion, but the unexpectedly monstrous pressure broke through. So, a few minutes after the blast, a plume of radioactive steam erupted from the shaft, damaging cameras and instruments and bathing everyone in a strange...
Right. Okay. That's clearly what went wrong. Yeah. It's there are so many unknowns in doing this, is my guess. That's the major problem. Fundamentally, it's it's just not a good tool to use. It just isn't. There's too much long-term waste from something like this.
Itchy sauna. The US government...
I mean, unless it's like, you know, nuclear power, but then it's not the waste material isn't explosive and you can do things to kind of contain it. An explosion like what they do here, it's so insanely messy that it's hard to kind of, you know, control it or to predict the final results of it, you know?
Tried their best to convince everyone that things hadn't been that bad, but for some reason the masses had a problem with clouds of radioactive fallout, even from peaceful nukes. But that wouldn't discourage Teller. So
yeah, Teller's not a quitter, that's why. He ain't no... He's a visionary. He pushes forward. He gets things done.
to show the world how cool H-bombs could really be, he scheduled another test, one 30 times more peaceful.
I think this guy just wants to get paid to blow shit up. I think in a nutshell, that's what this is. I 100% think this is exactly what this is.
In July 1962, while Cuban officials were visiting Moscow to negotiate a missile deal that would almost spark World War III 3 months later, a thermonuclear bomb worth 7 Hiroshima nukes exploded 200 meters underground in the Nevada desert. This time, the goal was to test nuclear excavation itself and check how big the crater could get. The blast displaced 12 million tons of soil and hollowed out a gargantuan crater 100 meters deep and 400 meters across, the largest artificial crater in US history.
Yay, well done. You've successfully made a giant hole. Aren't you so proud of yourself?
But digging with nukes is tricky. Bury the bomb too deep and you'll only get a disappointing dent. Bury it too shallow and you risk launching a radioactive cloud into the sky. Which was exactly what happened. Someone had miscalculated the depth of the explosion.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm going to say it again. Problem with it is that there are too many unknowns. It's too chaotic. You can't predict it. It's too nuts.
And a plume of
and if you up, you're in trouble.
Activity punched through. Fallout was detected as far as South Dakota and Illinois, and panic broke out in Utah when radioactive iodine was found in milk. It turned into one of the dirtiest tests on US soil ever. Just one more nuke, bro.
Always Teller back with another crazy idea.
Years that followed saw more peaceful explosions and peaceful fallout. Meanwhile, Teller's proposals got weirder. Liquefied tar sands in Canada with nukes. Blast a highway through the Sierra Nevada with nukes. Connect rivers in Mississippi with nukes. But the crown jewel of nuclear dreams was still the Panatomic Canal.
The Panatomic Canal. Genius.
A legion of scientists worked on it, and plans got disturbingly far. One of the top contenders was Route 17, an 80-kilometer trench across pristine Panamanian jungle that was short, flat, pretty empty, and perfectly nukeable. 250 bombs with the power of 8,000 Hiroshimas would do the job. 43,000 people across 17,000 square kilometers would...
Someone out there, or a team of people out there, were paid to find these places. And imagine the meeting. So what do you think? Oh, perfectly nukeable. I couldn't find a more nukeable place if, you know, I was given another 5 years. It's perfect. Pristine.
Still have to be evacuated, you know, just in case. And shockwaves might shatter windows as far as Costa Rica and Colombia. But what were such details in the grand scheme of progress? So let's rewind history and press the button to see what might have happened if Teller had got his way. Ready to push the button?
Oh,
3.
Yeah. You ready for this?
2, 1. Boom. The first round of nuclear salvos close to both coasts obliterates hundreds of square kilometers of pristine rainforest in seconds. A roaring success. Unfortunately, a cloud of fallout catches the Pacific winds. Weeks later, spikes of radiation are found over the Caribbean, and radioactive iodine, cesium, and...
We are so making Godzilla, man. Like, this is like prime Godzilla territory. That's what we're doing. It's Godzilla or a Sharknado. It's one or the other.
Strontium start to enter the food chains of both oceans. Tuna and sharks become radioactive. One option would be to stop, but to have a radioactive scar across the jungle, contamination of 2 oceans, and no canal, better push through. So a second round of blasts goes off in the central
So again, our broad teller is not a quitter. He marches right ahead with this.
Chuganaki River Valley, only to find that the central part of the isthmus had far more clay than expected. As soon as the rainy season hits, landslides clog the new craters like a self-healing wound. The choices: leave a mud-choked glowing blister through the rainforest or begin a colossal engineering nightmare just to keep the jungle from landsliding onto the canal. Not to mention the ecological apocalypse and the devastating PR victory that 120 megatons of nuclear peace over Latin America would give Cuba and the USSR. Luckily, in our timeline, the US blinked and began to sober up. In 1970,
Oh, poor Teller lost his job. Poor guy.
a final report killed the Panatomic Canal, and with it, all nuclear excavation projects. But Teller wasn't ready to let go, so he turned to nuclear fracking. Not because it made sense, but to keep Plowshare alive.
He just wants a reason to blow shit up. I've said it before. That's literally the only reason he's doing this. He just wants an excuse to blow things up.
Just one more nuke, and I'll build the future, bro. But several explosions later, the result was ultra-expensive, radioactive gas impossible to sell. In 1977, after 20 years and dozens of nukes across the US, Project Plowshare was finally cancelled without reaching any of its goals. No canal, harbour or tunnel had been built. In hindsight, it's easy to see how insane the idea was. But at a time when World War III felt imminent, when kids were playing with atomic toys as mushroom clouds filled the sky, using nukes to build a better future probably did feel like a great idea.